Hello and welcome to Sleep is My Waking Passion, the podcast where we get real about sleep and how it shapes your life. I'm Dr. Alison Kole, a triple-boarded pulmonary critical care and sleep medicine physician who's learned to thrive despite having chronic insomnia. And now I'm here to help you do the same. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a really super cool episode of the Sleep is My Waking Passion podcast. This is my episode to literally talk to what I refer to as a sleep celebrity. Yeah, woohoo! Okay, so I have been fangirling over Dr. Anne-Marie Morse for a very long time. She's somebody that I've been following her journey, and I feel like I've really learned a lot. Specifically, she is so well respected, and you're really well respected, both with patients as well as clinicians. So you bring the brains, but you also bring the ability to communicate. And that is something that I think if we're going to be good stewards of how we teach people about sleep, it is so key that we learn how to interact no matter what sort of level of education or what knowledge base we're coming from. She also happens to be like the quintessential Jersey girl. So we're both Jersey girls. And she is bringing fashion sense and style to the mix too. All right, so just so you are aware of the brainiac that I am talking to, she is a pediatric sleep medicine specialist as well as neurologist. She's also director of child neurology, director of pediatric sleep medicine, and program director of the child neurology residency at Geisinger Medical Center in Pennsylvania. So welcome. And
Thank you.
Do I call you Anne-Marie or Anne? Which do you prefer, or is there a right way to do it?
What's so funny is that most people who know me personally call me Anne-Marie. However, in my professional life, many times I'll introduce myself as Anne, and people go, why? Is it that you don't want them to call you Anne-Marie? I go, no, because I just don't want to have the 5 minutes of, is it Emily, Emery? And I'm like, just call me Anne. So I'm used to, I'm Anne-Marie. My sister is Mary Ann. My parents are Italians from New Jersey. I love the Virgin Mary and her mother. And so with that, Anne or Anne-Marie, but most people would call me Anne-Marie, who's close to me. So Alison, I would very much like for you to be able to call me Anne-Marie.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Anne-Marie, I've actually never kind of wanted to talk about my own journey with burnout because I kind of felt like it's a downer, you know what I mean? Sure. But now that I've been processing the past couple of years and kind of moving into a more healthy space, you had actually done a post on social where you revealed that you were feeling kind of burned out.
Sure.
And I was, one of the things we discussed was, can you share that a little bit and what you want people to know about that journey? Because if anybody's gonna be able to communicate it in a way where we leave feeling more empowered,
Sure.
I didn't realize when I was in the thick of it, I was like, this is like a medical burnout. But it's not. It's actually universal. We all feel it no matter what
Sure.
profession we're in, or even if we're not working. Stay-at-home moms feel burnt out.
Sure. They may have the highest risk. I mean, they have the toughest job. There is no reprieve from being a stay-at-home mom. So I give them the most utter respect. And so the post that you're referencing is really within the last few weeks. However, this was the second time that I've had this realization. This time was not as I would say monumental as my initial time, because my initial time that I experienced it was really eye-opening because I had absolutely zero awareness that I was burnt out. And so I'll take you through both of those journeys. So I'm still technically considered a young career clinician because I'm only 8 years into practice. And when I started my practice with Geisinger, I actually was initially hired as someone who was going to be at the main hospital for 12 weeks a year. And then they created a clinic for me in East Stroudsburg, which was about 45 minutes from where I lived in New Jersey. And so that's what my husband and I thought we were going to be doing. And then I had a welcome surprise in June of 2016 when I found out I was pregnant with my daughter, which completely changed all of our best made plans, right? And that ended up leading to us transitioning to moving out here. So I started with Geisinger in October of 2016, then went on maternity leave in February of 2017. So you can imagine just that as your first phase of career is being a brand new mom and being a brand new attending physician. Within 2 years of living out here and being a new mom and being a new clinician, I actually had the opportunity to take over the division of child neurology and did so. And over that course of time, grew my division to 15 providers, seeing about 12,000 outpatients a year, one of the busiest inpatient services, also building a research repertoire and really dedicating myself to education because we are an academic system system with medical students and residents and fellows. So really not recognizing all the different roles I was playing, because I'm going, this is professionally rewarding. This is great. Look at all this growth. There's a lot of positive attributes that came with that. However, at the expense of, it takes a lot of time to do all of those things, and not realizing how I was actually compromising some of the things that I previously invested in my own self for my own wellness to accomplish all of those. So you now continue to move forward. I now have a 3-year-old, and I have now pregnant with my second child, and the whole world shuts down in 2020. And so that was March 17, 2020, world shuts down. I deliver my son April 3rd of 2020. So you can imagine being a person who is now with a brand new baby, right? A 3-year-old at home. The world is shut down. And as I deliver my child, I say to the obstetrician, and I need a note that says I can go back to work tomorrow because the world is shut down and I need to continue to run a division during a crisis. And the OB looked at me like I had 3 heads, and my husband's like, she's being serious. We'll make sure she's careful, but she's going to be working whether you give her that note or not. And so they reluctantly gave me that letter. Obviously, I was still working from home, but many meetings where my camera was closed and I'm breastfeeding a baby while trying to kind of redirect, change clinics, do all these types of things. Again, during all this, I don't know if it was the adrenaline or just the reward of seeing my team function as a team, seeing patients getting the care that they need, continuing to have that professional development, that I really didn't realize how much, again, that it was putting it at the expense of my own wellness. And so it actually really was sleep that had made me have that awareness. What do I need? World Sleep was in Rome for its first time when it went back to in person. And so I was speaking at World Sleep, and my husband came with me to this event. We stayed at the Waldorf Astoria, which was an incredible location. And we stayed there for 10 days. And during that time, I wasn't answering emails. I wasn't checking anything. I wasn't doing any work. And I woke up one day and I went, I feel like there's a weight off my shoulders. I don't have kids with me. I have my responsibilities were so much lessened. And I realized at that moment, this is what it feels like to feel good again. This is what it feels like to wake up and go to the gym and take care of myself and be mentally well and balanced. And that moment I said, I will never go back to the way I was functioning. When I got back to the United States, I joined a gym, started looking at what it was that I was eating, how I was spending my day, became purposeful that when I got home from work, that work was done. I'm spending time, I'm being present with my children and my family. And so really made purposeful decisions to change my life. Now, you would say, well, you just had another kind of close encounter with burnout and you were just having another experience like that. What it was is I was at a TED conference 2 weeks ago in Atlanta, and it was an amazing opportunity to be in this melting pot of different people with lots of different expertise and constantly hearing the themes around, again, emotional intelligence, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, social management. And I had this aha moment again of that I was starting to creep back into that same behavior, that I was starting to deprioritize myself, starting to allow myself, well, I'll wake up early, but instead of going to the gym, I will write this paper. I'll do this. I was starting to, again, deprioritize my wellness. And so when we're talking about burnout, most of us are accusing work, but we generally are not giving ourselves the responsibility that we actually have of how are we contributing to allowing ourselves to get to that point. And so for me, when I look at work-life balance, it's not that I expect to work a 9 to 5. It's about me purposefully understanding where can I exercise my life and where can I exercise the control over my work, and then being able to identify what is that balance that makes it feel right. And I know it's never going to be 50-50, but if it's a 60-40 or 70-30, is that what's right for you? That may allow for you to just be more successful.
It's so crazy that you're mentioning this, because my journey through 2020, I was actually recently interviewed, and someone asked me, they're like, all right, so you talk about having to really feel that in order for you to feel that you're more balanced, that you needed to completely do a pivot, right?
Yes.
That I needed to do something completely different with my career and shift it in a way that I never had forethought to think it would happen. And then he was like, yeah, but you seem to be doing a lot of different things. You're doing CME, you have a podcast, and it seems like you actually have your hands in multiple pots, but yet you seem less burnt out.
Yes.
And to your point, it's exactly that. As long as you understand what it is that, why are you here? What is your purpose? For me, I had sort of lost that. I was kind of feeling like my purpose is to be a cog in some medicine wheel. And again, that journey looks different for other people. But then I realized, I'm like, what do I really care about? And yes, I will tell you, I miss seeing a lot of my patients. I really, I'm like, oh, I wish I could just have them back. It's not something that's going to happen right now just because I'm pivoting sort of. I've decided that it's got to be quality over quantity. And just what's available to me right now is to provide that quality care and then do some of these other things. But really, it's about wanting to take a step back and how do I impact the most number of people humanly possible?
Yes.
And I just feel like once I realized that, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm having the same conversations with patients and I'm having them one-on-one. Wouldn't it be great if there was a platform where I could share what I know and talk to other people and make myself even smarter, which this whole journey has been about, and be able to do that. And I look at sleep as being really what made me realize that I myself was completely unaware of how I was basically self-sabotaging, how I was contributing to the burnout.
Yes.
We could go on and have an entire different episode about how I firmly believe that the medical model needs to be fixed, and that's a bigger, more global issue. But specific to me, I contributed, and I needed to be able to take ownership of where I'm at. And for me, it was just, okay, you need to create boundaries. I didn't feel like I could think through the fog because and I know as a mom and doing everything you're doing, you might be at home breastfeeding and doing your thing during the pandemic. I think what I saw in terms of the volume of sick people and feeling like it was almost like military level medicine, like slap a Band-Aid next patient, slap a Band-Aid next patient.
Sure.
I just could not. I knew I needed to try to shut that off. I already had struggled with that before we even went into the pandemic, but I just stopped being able to sleep. We went into a shift work model. I all of a sudden was like working days, then I'm working at night, and then it's like go to sleep. And I myself as well, our kids are very similar in age, like had 2 toddlers at home. And I'm like, they're screaming. I don't know. I can't. I don't know how to create this like room of like. I just was, my circadian rhythm was super off. I got so desperate. I tried some Lunesta because that had worked for me years before, and I was like, okay, now I'm just wired and loopy. Like I'm not even sleeping. It's not even. We know that there's an indication for it in shift work, and it just wasn't working. So I really appreciate you sharing with us that. Now, you also mentioned something else on social media that I think is so interesting, which is you describe sleep as a tool. I will say that sleep for me, once I actually got sleep, you went to World Sleep and had the revelation of being able to sleep.
Yes.
I needed like a year of decompression. I felt like the way I describe it is sleep is so connected. And I know you were recently at Psych Congress to your mental health. And I feel like I had gotten so far away from what was really okay for me mentally that then I'm in this cycle of like, now I'm feeling depressed.
Yes.
And now I'm not sleeping.
Yes.
And now I can't sleep because now I'm depressed and then I'm anxious about not sleep. And it just became this like swirl.
Yes.
I almost felt like I didn't really know how to get out of it. And really what saved me was you had 10 days of it and you were able to readjust. And then I like needed a year of just being. Literally a year where I finally started to feel like, oh, my phone's not ringing all the time. No, somebody's not paging me with some crisis in the ICU. And all of a sudden I'm sleeping. And I feel like that is what really healed me.
Sure.
And you describe sleep as a tool. And I want to hear about this philosophy because I think it's so key.
Yeah. So I think that what's important to first just call out is, although it may have been 10 days for me to have the realization, I think all of us also have different timeframes based on what is on our plates and do our days look like? And so when we're talking about sleep as a tool, it really is important to frame it up that the full 24 hours are connected. And so we've made a huge mistake in society, and especially in medicine, of creating this artificial divide of that this is what is important in the daytime and there's less important things that occur at the nighttime. And it is important to remember that sleep health and circadian science are heavily intertwined. And so when I'm talking about sleep as a tool, I talk about it as a tool for optimizing your health, wellness, performance. When I'm talking about it to clinicians, I am going to share with them that this is your tool for improving your ability to diagnose, prognose, and provide therapeutic intervention for the disorders that you are treating, not for sleep disorders or circadian disorders, but for your cardiovascular disease, your neurologic disease, your oncologic disease. These are preventative strategies. These are therapeutic strategies. These are things that will help give you insights to what exactly is going on. I'm a big believer in personalized medicine. And no, I'm not talking about genomics. I'm talking about putting the person back into the medicine so that I'm actually acknowledging and recognizing what does their full 24 hours look like. And so when you talk about sleep as a tool, it's important to remember that when you're describing your own personal journey, and I'll use that as an illustration of that, you got to the point where you weren't sleeping and you felt like I was starting to feel depressed and I was feeling anxious and I was not feeling like my optimal self. That wasn't a fantasy, or I guess not a fantasy, a nightmare that you were having. It is something that biologically is going to start to change. Why? Because sleep plays a critical role in things like emotional processing. That is why some of our dreaming content will have the content that it has and may be reflective of the things that you were thinking about in a day or worrying about, because it's your brain's way of kind of doing that defragmentation and going, how do I make sense of what it is that I'm feeling, so that when I wake up in the morning, it feels more of a neutral. For the same reason is why when we're not sleeping well, it's negatively impacting our frontal and prefrontal cortex, which now is going to make us more impulsive, emotionally labile, more likely to have risk-taking behaviors. So when we're talking about sleep as a tool, it's not saying this is this correlative thing and that, yes, we see that some people who are sleeping well, they seem to be happier, they seem to be, no. This is based on biology. You are dealing with the same circuitry, the same connectome, the same way that the brain wants to talk. You are causing short circuiting by not acknowledging your sleep as an opportunity to be able to get in front of that. So it doesn't matter what lane you're in. If you're saying, hey, I'm a teacher or I'm a student, if you're saying that I'm a doctor or I'm a patient, if you're saying I'm a police officer or I'm someone who's being charged with a crime, sleep is important in all of those situations. Sleep is a tool that you can utilize that has a bidirectional relationship with time management and efficiency. And people go, okay, well, I guess maybe if I'm not using my time well, perhaps I'm not going to fall asleep as easier. Yeah, that's very much true. If you're not using your time well and you're now extending your workday because you're not efficient, yes, that is going to eat into your bedtime. Why? One, because you're working longer. Two, when you're done working, you're going to be laying in bed anxious about, did I finish everything? What was that my best work? Now, when you're not sleeping well, I already told you, you're going to be more impulsive, risk-taking behavior. Your quality of work is not going to be as good. It's going to take you longer to do your work. So now your time management is going to go even further down the hole. And so that now becomes this vicious cycle. And there's very clear evidence to demonstrate when you're taking a purposeful approach to both sides, you do see improvement in both areas. And so it really is important to be able to frame up the what's in it for me. What is my priority? Do I want to improve my mood? Do I want to improve my weight? Do I want to improve my skin and hair? Do I want to get that promotion or be athletically exceptional? Utilize sleep as a tool because the fact that it is going to make the difference in terms of how you're performing on a day-to-day basis.
Perfect answer. Literally perfect. I'm like, what do I ask next? What I do ask next is you have managed, and I love the fact that you kind of circle back to the fact that it's an active process, meaning you use sleep as a tool. What happens often is we get comfortable. Like if we've regulated ourselves and things are better, then all of a sudden we're like, oh, well, things are kind of cool. And then you can fall back in old patterns. So being actively, sort of just like as you're present with your children, for example, being present and being active about really saying, I'm going to continue to make this a priority, or I kind of am falling back into some old patterns, and being self-aware enough to recognize that, I think, is huge.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that's really important is that we have a tendency of a society to take a victimization mentality of like, why is this happening to me? Why can't I sleep? I thought I fixed this. And the reality is that you yourself had said, I took the approach of saying, what is it that I can control, right? So I very much love the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, where Sean Covey says, hey, listen, I'm very much a fan of the circle of influence. What is it that I can control? Because in our world, there are always going to be things that we feel are unjust or shouldn't happen, etc. And we, as an individual, have the ability to say, how am I responding to that? What can I exercise? And although things like eating and sleeping are natural processes, right? We see the same pattern with sleep happening in the nutrition and obesity world, is that we fall into a habit of either accepting a less than optimal, which is what we do very frequently as a society, saying, I can get away with 4 or 5 hours of sleep, I'm doing fine. No, you've just accepted a lesser version of who you are. Or that I don't need to be as tight with watching what I'm eating. I'm going to sneak here and I'm going to be a little bit looser there. When we start being too loosey-goosey, the wheels fall off the bus, right? And so the same thing happens when you're talking about our sleep, is really being purposeful and attentive to, when I'm making changes in my behaviors, what are the consequences of those? And so really creating an accountability structure. I can't make anyone accountable, but I can make them aware of, if you are accountable, this is the reward. And if you're not, this is what the risk is. And then you choosing, which way do you want to go? And so I think that when people are able to start recognizing it's not a victimization where there's nothing you can do, but rather a constant decision making where you can choose optimal me or I'm settling for less, I would hope that most people would want to choose the optimal version of themselves.
Choice. That's right. We have choice. Let's make this active. So I know our time is coming soon to an end. So what I wanted to ask you was, you actually have a proprietary score. You've traveled a lot. Dr. Morse has been literally all over the globe. World Sleep is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, she's always, I'm here and I'm there. And by the way, your talks are so good that I actually got invited to speak at the American Sleep and Breathing Academy. And I don't know if your ears were burning that particular night, but I literally was like, oh, I'm going to be talking tomorrow. And the entire conversation centered around how amazing your speech was. I cannot tell you, I went home and was like, girlfriend, you got to check. What would Anne-Marie do? That's what I thought to myself.
There you go.
I channeled my inner Anne, and it went off without a hitch. And I got to thank you for that, because believe it or not, that influenced me to really make sure that my message was resonating with dentists. That's something that you're very good at.
Thank you.
In cross-functional collaboration, getting dentists to see your message, getting psychiatrists to see your message, getting, cardiac folks to see your message, getting patients to see your message. On your travels with all of that, how do you manage to regulate your sleep? And then talk to us about your EZ sleep score, because I'm very curious, because you're rating hotels and you know what you're talking about because you've been there.
Sure. So as a person who does travel a lot, one of the things that I had the knee-jerk reaction of doing initially was going, okay, which one is a 3-star, 4-star, 5-star hotel, right? And so you instinctually are going to have the belief that if you are a 4 or 5-star hotel, then of course the accommodations have to be better. I'm going to have to sleep better. And let me tell you, that is the farthest thing from the truth, because there are many 4 and 5-star hotels that, although they're extraordinarily luxurious and beautiful and have all this degree of opulence, the sleep is some of the worst sleep ever. And so it really dawned on me that many of these hotels are not designed for sleeping. They're designed for getting people in to eat at their restaurants, use their spas, hang out at their bars, use their pools, but not necessarily to create an environment for sleep. It also dawned on me that some people who are looking at these hotels to want to sleep are going, well, I don't want to be near the ice machine, and I don't want to be near the elevator. And that also had me kind of question, why would a hotel be designed that if you do have rooms, which you're going to have to by the ice machine and the elevator, why would you not make sure that those rooms especially have unique soundproofing that is going to be more helpful, right? And so I kind of put that to the test. And so when I created the Easy Sleep System, it was in reflection of some of the things that I do, right? So some of the things that I do is I'm making sure that when I get in, that I am first checking out the room in regards to what is the darkness like. If I'm going to close these, am I going to need any type of clips? Matt Allard had introduced me to the idea of like use the clips that are part of your hangers, because I used to be like, do I need to bring my own clips to kind of close the curtains? And so you can use the pant hanger clips and be able to clip them closed if that's opened. There also is, for me, I'm a person where sound will wake me up. So I do travel with a sleep mask that has little speakers in it, and then I will listen to music. Most times it is actually just lullabies, which kind of got me reflected on like when I used to put my kids to sleep. And so that gives me the association of my children, which is always nice. And then that obviously helps me lull to sleep and blocks out some of the noise. There are people who need to utilize other types of things to bring with them, whether it's their certain pillow or certain blanket, even specific pajamas or robes or like socks. That can all be very helpful. I do believe that for myself, I really have to engage in kind of the same process that I do at home that I do on travel. So it's always kind of doing that same thing, my brushing my teeth, my same skin routine, brushing my hair, getting all ready, and then making sure that I'm putting my alarm on, putting my phone to the side, and then just getting the music on and being able to lay there and start just kind of unwinding. Many times I do have to recognize, especially when I'm traveling, that sometimes my brain is still on the go and not ready for that because I just got done with a meeting or a dinner. And so my brain is like, it's not time to sleep yet. You're on a different time zone or whatever else. And so I do sometimes have to purposefully get myself out of bed, do something that will help me to wind down a little bit longer, like reading or otherwise, and then try re-engage in that. With the Easy Sleep System, I take into account not just what is that sleep environment like, but also what is the daytime environment like? Are there things that are going to optimally engage you and support you to be able to encourage an optimal utilization of your day, right? Why do I say that that's important? Because of the fact that the day and night cannot be divided. So if I am not doing anything that is driving up my homeostatic sleep drive and allowing me to experience kind of life in a very qualitative way, then I'm not going to be able to sleep very well. If I'm in a place that feels very remote and it's very stressful to try and get to wherever I'm going, there's no public transportation, there's no Ubers, there's nothing like that, that's going to be deleterious to my abilities to fall asleep, especially if I know I have to wake up the following morning and catch an Uber to get to the airport. I'm going to be stressing about, will I be able to actually get to the airport? So I look at what is things like the availability of food. There are some hotels where it is actually hard to get food, depending on whether you're a 3, 4, 5-star hotel. There's sometimes not even restaurants open at all. And so you're depending on just like your Uber Eats or your Grubhubs or things like that. Also trying to see what are the other environments within the hotel. What is their gym like? Do they have a pool? This is important because I think that when people are traveling, they should not be abandoning any of their normal routines if exercise is about it. And if exercise is not a part of your routine, then it gives you the opportunity to potentially start making it a part of your routine to optimize your wellness. So really taking a look at all those components. When I'm looking at the bedroom environment, I'm definitely looking at obviously things that are important to everyone. What is the mattress like? What are the bedding like? What are the pillows like? Are there extra pillows? Are there extra blankets in the room? How easy is it to be able to engage the staff to be able to help you? Are they actually offering housekeeping services? And then we also even have a breakdown of if you are traveling solo as a business traveler versus as a couple versus a family, because some of the best hotels that I've stayed at for myself, I would never want to stay with my kids. It would cause me way too much stress. Very frequently, I'm more inclined to be able to rate a 3-star hotel for with the kids, like a Residence Inn or a Hampton Inn, that offer me almost a home-like environment for traveling with the family versus something like a Ritz-Carlton for traveling independently or with just my spouse or otherwise.
How do people access your Easy Sleep System?
So we initially had just a handful of them distributed as video content. We actually will be having this now living on my website, Damn Good Sleep. So damngoodsleep.com. It's Dam as Dr. Amory Morse. So DAMM, goodsleep.com. And so there will be a page where we're going to be starting to populate that with the different easy sleep rating systems for the hotels. However, we will also start being able to rate products as well as other locations like spa services, restaurants, etc. That may be something that can be helpful for people to kind of just consider in regards to how is it contributing to just overall quality of my sleep and also my day.
Oh, and by the way, guys, I was remiss because on top of everything else she does, she is co-host with Matthew Allard on the Sleeping Around podcast. And I forgot to mention that. So my apologies, Anne-Marie.
No worries. No worries. Well, I'll be having a new one coming out next year, so
I take it that, and I'm sure you travel with the family, but for when you're doing business travel, are there any pointers that you want people to know so that they can optimize their productivity, be their freshest, best version of themselves? Because those trips tend to be relatively short.
Sure. Yeah. So I think that one of the things that I very frequently see happen when people are traveling for business is they abandon what they normally would in regards to their eating. It is not uncommon that people are reaching for fast food and other types of snacks. I'm a person who I am very regimented with what it is that I'm eating because I know what is going to make me feel well and what's going to make me feel kind of bloated and lethargic and kind of crummy. And to be honest, although sometimes the food that you can get while you're away is very tasty, it generally is not the most nutritious, and many times people are then struggling with weight issues, etc. So I travel with my own snacks. I always have a bag of nuts with me. I always have my protein bars with me. I then will utilize the refrigerators in the room to be able to put some of those things in. Sometimes I'll even go to the local store and get other snacks like grapes or otherwise, so that I have something that is easy, grabbable type of things. If you're in a hotel that is already pre-filled refrigerators, you can actually request for them to empty those so that you can utilize them for your own stuff. And a lot of people aren't aware of that and are worried about even touching it because they'll get charged for things. So I think that becomes really important. The second part is just being mindful of how you're utilizing your diet, making sure that you are maintaining a schedule that is representative of the things that you would commit to yourself when you're back at home. And then finally, I think it also is being mindful of how you're utilizing your hotel room. So a lot of times I see that people will say, oh, I struggle with sleep when I'm traveling, but it's also because they now are doing all those behaviors that we always discourage when they're at home. So instead of using the desk in the room, they're now laying in their bed with their laptop and they're doing that work. And all these hotels most typically have an area dedicated for you to be able to sit at and do work. Utilize that area, keep the laptop out of your bed, and try to maintain that. It is very tempting to lay in bed and just watch TV or have that on mindlessly, but most times that's just going to be a distraction from you being able to go to bed. And so making sure that you're just being mindful of those types of situations.
Do you ever change your meal times for like your destination so that, and have you found that helpful for kind of like keeping yourself on track?
Yeah, so there is some degree of evidence that demonstrate that the circadian timing of meals can actually help as a measure against jet lag. And so when you are traveling to a different time zone, adopting the time zone meal schedule that you're going to can actually help facilitating that. It is something that when you're on very long flights can be challenging because many times you now are having to say, oh, I don't want to eat right now because this is an 8-hour flight and I need to wait so many hours. I will say on those longer flights, I typically am just sleeping anyway, although that's not always the best thing to do because that can definitely negatively affect you. But I do find that that can be helpful because of the fact that you now are going to be more inclined to be prepared for the next meal at the timing that is expected when you're getting to that time zone. I will say when it's very short trips, like when you're doing these 24 to 48 hour turnarounds, that sometimes is a little bit more of a challenge to execute and feel differently on. But I do think it is something that is worthwhile to try because there's really no side effects associated with it.
And I think you've actually mentioned in a post that you try to really just say, you know what, this is a really short trip. I'm going to try to stay on whatever I'm at home rather than trying to like flip flop because that's actually more aggravating because I'm going to be back tomorrow.
Yes. And I will say put guardrails on that I fully recognize there are some people who are unable to do that because part of their job is I have to take a client out to dinner. So you need to be awake. But I would say that if that is a part of what your job responsibilities are, trying to then find other ways where you can actually insert that appropriate sleep, and then also making sure that you're utilizing strategic napping as something that may help you, one, get through that dinner, but also compensate for some of that sleep loss while you're traveling.
Anne-Marie, I cannot thank you enough for your time. This has been truly a pleasure. I am so excited that you could join me on this journey. Many thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Struggling with sleep? Dr. Kole is here to help. Whether you need a comprehensive sleep coaching program, suspect you have sleep apnea, or simply seeking a second opinion, she's available for consultation in New Jersey, New York, California, and Georgia, with more states coming soon. Schedule your free 10-minute review of services today to find out which visit is right for you at AskTheSleepMD.com and start your journey to better sleep with a trusted sleep expert.
Please be advised that the Sleep is My Waking Passion podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. It does not constitute medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider for personalized guidance. For my full disclaimer, please visit AskTheSleepMD.com, and while you're there, don't forget to sign up for my free newsletter. Sweet dreams and happy listening.